folks, and welcome to the Culture Ward, where we dissect and dismember pop culture in all its forms. Before we begin, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and help us grow the channel. It would really mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like and share the video if you enjoy the content. Now let's get into this. There has been a lot of news over the past week or so, and I thought we would dive into some of these stories, briefly, in what I'm calling the weekly wrap-up. You see what I did there? Weekly wrap-up? Like it's weak, because I'm not going to exert too much effort on these stories. Anyway, let's get into it. We'll start by discussing the biggest news this week, and that'll be the Stranger Things release date and trailer that just finally dropped a couple days ago. Stranger Things, which began, almost 10 years ago, in July of 2016. Such a simple time. Before the big bad orange man, or the virus of unfathomable provenance, or Disney Plus. Back when some movies and TV shows were still kinda good, and there was still some hope that Star Wars was going to be good again. Anyway, the most recent season of Stranger Things, Season 4, originally aired in mid-2022. I think Season 5 was supposed to be released sometime in 2024, but thanks to the perfectly timed and super beneficial film industry strikes, it got delayed quite a bit. So, Stranger Things Season 5 finally has release dates. Yes, plural. After 3 long years, it's nearly time to return to Hawkins and the Upside Down for the very last time. Season 5 of Stranger Things will finally release later in 2025 on Netflix with a rather unusual rollout that will have everyone binge-watching during the most wonderful times of the year. At Netflix Tadum 2025, the live event, yes, that's the event's full name, which took place at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles this past weekend, the streaming giant unveiled new teasers and confirmed premiere dates for some of its biggest movies and shows. At the top of the slate was, of course, Stranger Things Season 5. At the showcase, Netflix released a hybrid teaser recap video that dramatically retraced the events of all 4 seasons thus far, before giving audiences quick passing glances at the upcoming final season. It should surprise no one that the 5th season, which is made up of 8 total episodes, is shaping up to be a doozy. So many of the flashing images in the teaser are full of dread, terror, panic, and potentially heartbreak. The video ends with a close-up of Noah Schnapp's Will, who yells a guttural "run" before the trailer cuts to black. Alright, so I was going to just play the trailer outright, but after a reflection, I think we should just watch it on mute. You can always go check it out on YouTube. So apparently it's broken Netflix records with like 250 million views since it dropped last week. But anyway, we're going to watch it and then we'll just respond to it in real time.
I think about that night.
Alright, so it opens up.
All the time.
Joyce Byers, played by Winona Ryder, kind of giving a voiceover, saying she thinks about that night all the time, the night that they went to. She's talking about Season 1, when they went to go get Will. Then we see some scenes from Season 1. Yeah. So then we go into Season 2. Season 3. And then to Season 4. And that's the end of Season 4. So Volume 1 releases November 26th. Volume 2, Christmas. And the finale on New Year's Eve. Alright, we finally get some quick views of new footage. Alright, well that looks intense. The final season. So as you can see, the new season has 3 different release dates. So Volume 1, Episodes 1 through 4, November 26th. Volume 2, which is Episodes 5 through 7, December 25th, Christmas Day. And Volume 3, on New Year's Eve, December 31st, is just the Episode 8 finale. As for the plot of Season 5, Netflix was slightly more tight-lipped about that, but there is an official synopsis that confirms what some of the characters are up to and when the season takes place. Over a year has passed since the disaster in Hawkins, and Vecna remains at large. The official plot synopsis is: fall of 1987, Hawkins is scarred by the opening of the rifts, and our heroes are united by a single goal: find and kill Vecna. But he has vanished, his whereabouts and plans unknown. Complicating their mission, the government has placed the town under military quarantine and intensified its hunt for Eleven, forcing her back into hiding. As the anniversary of Will's disappearance approaches, so does a heavy, familiar dread. The final battle is looming, and with it, a darkness more powerful and more deadly than anything they've faced before. To end this nightmare, they'll need everyone, the full party, standing together one last time. Are people still excited about this show? I was excited for Season 5 for a while, but I practically forgot about it at this point. I guess I could binge the first 4 seasons again and try to reinvigorate my excitement. Who knows? What about you? Are you excited about the 5th and final season of Stranger Things? Or did you forget all about it like me? Let me know in the comments. So, next up, let's talk about the Fantastic Four, one of my favorite comics from my childhood. Marvel's first family finally arrives in the MCU this summer. Scheduled for release on July 11th, the new movie is called Fantastic Four: First Steps, and it stars Pedro Pascal, again, as Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, and Eben Moss-Backrack as Ben Grimm, aka the Thing. Set in an alternative reality from the main MCU, it is retro-futuristic in design, and actually looks pretty cool. However, Marvel has recently had test screenings of the film, and rumors are that they didn't go as well as Marvel had hoped. You see, this movie needs to be a hit. It will be the 3rd feature film released this year, after Black Captain America, Brave New World, and The Thunderbolts, both of which failed to break even at the box office. And in addition to those failures, Marvel also has suffered on Disney+. First, Daredevil Born Again had some of the lowest ratings of any Disney Plus show to date, and reviews were mid at best. And later this month, the show Ironheart is supposed to premiere, and rumors are that even Marvel doesn't like it, and the trailer for it looks, well, pretty unimpressive. In other words, Marvel really needs a big win with the Fantastic Four. We're supposedly heading into the Avengers Doomsday next year, and they need to build excitement for that movie, which apparently has a huge budget and really needs to nail it at the box office. So unfortunately, if rumors are to be believed, Fantastic Four might be yet another misfire. Even without rumors, we know that they chose to include the female version of Silver Surfer, also named Shala Bal, instead of the Silver Surfer everyone knows and loves, Norrin Radd. And I know Shala Bal was a Silver Surfer in the comics for like 5 pages in a story arc set in an alternate reality, but no one remembers her. Norrin Radd is the Silver Surfer, and even normies with little to no background knowledge know that Silver Surfer is supposed to be a man. But as for rumors, some have suggested that Marvel is once again leaning into the girl power trope that keeps failing, by having Sue Storm and the female Silver Surfer team up to save the day, with the male characters taking a backseat. In fact, the movie is rumored to be heavily focused on Sue Storm, just another entry in the so-called MCU. Recent Fantastic Four test screenings reportedly mid, with CGI incomplete and character work lacking. Marvel Studios may have a problem on its hands. According to multiple sources, the most recent test screenings of Fantastic Four: First Steps were held earlier this week in Los Angeles, and the reactions are mixed. Though it's still in the post-production phase, initial viewer feedback suggests the reboot might not be the triumphant return for Marvel's first family that Kevin Feige was hoping for. A source who attended the film described it as mid and meh, clarifying that it was not that bad, but not that good either. Perhaps more concerning are criticisms about, quote, weak character development and bad CGI. Now, the CGI can be improved in the coming weeks. I'm sure they're still finalizing the digital effects. Now, in general, Marvel doesn't do public test screenings unless they're worried. That was the case with The Eternals, The Marvels, Quantumania, and Brave New World. You see the trend there, all of those movies lost money. An unnamed source reportedly described the film as a mess and a huge problem movie, echoing language that was once used to describe The Marvels before its disastrous release. So not all reactions were negative. Apparently, the Ralph Ineson's portrayal of Galactus seemed to go over well with audiences, calling that a promising sign. So people actually like Galactus's role in the film. Someone else described the overall response as, quote, okay, but not a big sample size, adding that a couple people have said the first act's shaky, but it gets better once Galactus shows up. Noted that the version screen was very unfinished with only about 25% of VFX completed. Something that could certainly skew audience reactions. I mean, 25%. This thing launches next month. Now, the film isn't eliciting the kind of extreme reactions being reported from Superman test screenings. The fact that Marvel felt the need to hold a public test run suggests some internal anxiety. The studio hasn't had a runaway hit since Deadpool and Wolverine, and with Bob Iger reportedly disappointed in the 2026 release slate, the Fantastic Four was expected to anchor the brand moving forward alongside the upcoming X-Men reboot. Scheduled to hit theaters on July 25th, 2025, not July 11th. That's my fault. So July 25th is when this thing comes out. So there were also rumors floating around recently that they were doing reshoots, like very recently, like in the last couple of weeks. For most movie studios, that would be extremely bizarre for them to actually be doing reshoots 2 months away from the release date of the movie. But we know from previous Marvel outings that that's not the case with them. They do reshoots to the very last minute. Anyway, what do you think about the Fantastic Four movie? Do you think it'll save Marvel and get people excited about Avengers Doomsday? Alright, so next up, we're going to talk some more about Disney. Trouble at the House of Mouse this past week as they continue to struggle financially. Recall that last month, the Wall Street Journal wrote a story about Marvel Studios scaling back its production. I even did a video about it. It seems that over the past 5 years, Marvel has lost a considerable amount of money, due, at least according to them, to oversaturation of content, both feature films and especially Disney Plus shows. Now, the actual problem wasn't necessarily too much content, it was just too much shitty content. But they were certainly overstretching themselves, which affected the quality of their output. At any rate, Disney seemingly acknowledged that they needed to pump the brakes on new Marvel content, especially streaming content, and focus on making fewer, higher quality shows and movies. And even before that Wall Street Journal article, it was already well known and understood that Disney at large was facing financial troubles and was looking for ways to increase profits or at least scale back losses. In fact, this has been the case since late 2022 when Bob Chapek was fired on a Sunday night and Bob Iger was suddenly rehired to replace him due to concerns over shrinking revenue and tanking stock prices. When Iger returned, he pledged to cut billions out of the budget and to lay off more than 7,000 employees, a promise he's already managed to fulfill. But it seems the purge has not ended. This week, another round of layoffs was announced across several divisions of Disney. So Disney lays off several hundred employees in cost-cutting measure. The teams impacted include marketing for film and television, as well as TV publicity, casting and development, and corporate financial operations. So this just released a couple of days ago. Disney is laying off several hundred employees globally as part of cost-cutting measures. The impacted teams are employees working on marketing for both film and television, as well as TV publicity, casting and development, and corporate financial operations, a source familiar with the matter confirms. While individual employees from those teams are impacted and were notified Monday, no team itself is being eliminated, the source said. So it doesn't seem they're cutting whole departments right now. In March, Disney cut just under 200 jobs at ABC News and at its Disney Entertainment Networks division due to economic headwinds facing the linear TV business. The cuts represented about 6% of the division's workforce. And this is part of Disney's ongoing efficiency and cost-cutting measures, which were outlined in September as it refocuses on streaming and pushes for profitability. The Burbank-based company employs 233,000 people globally and 171,000 in the U.S. So a rep for the company stated that we continually evaluate ways to invest in our business and more effectively manage our resources and costs to fuel the state-of-the-art creativity and innovation that consumers value and expect from Disney. As part of this ongoing optimization work, we have been reviewing the cost structure for our corporate level functions and have determined there are ways for them to operate more efficiently. In 2023, upon his return, Disney CEO Bob Iger unveiled a plan to cut 7,000 employees as part of a strategic realignment of the company that was instituted in multiple phases, with staffers being cut across a number of months. So I don't know what that means for the company right now. I know they've had a lot of losses lately, especially in Marvel and Lucasfilm. They can't seem to get a hit in either one of those lately. And of course, we know Marvel has been losing money for years now. But maybe things are turning around. I don't know. I mean, Lilo and Stitch is actually making money at the box office right now. And, they hope for Fantastic Four to be there as well. And I think Fantastic Four will probably do okay just by virtue of its release date. It's really the final big budget summer movie to be released. July 25th, I think we said. It is a big budget spectacle. So I'm guessing it's going to make $600 million probably. Now, whether that's going to turn a profit depends on how much they've spent on that thing. I guess we'll find out at some point. But anyway, what do you think about Disney's latest round of layoffs? Do you think shrinking the company and lowering costs will help improve Disney's content going forward? And you may have heard that Warner Brothers and HBO are working on a new adaptation of the classic Harry Potter series. The intent is to create a, quote, faithful adaptation of the book series by J.K. Rowling by making it into a TV series on HBO, with an entire season dedicated to adapting each of the 7 novels from the series. Now, previously, beginning in 2001, the Harry Potter series was brought to life on the big screen, with the films becoming nearly as iconic as the books themselves. The world literally watched the child actors grow up, and those actors, including Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, became synonymous with the characters they portrayed: Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley. The movies were certainly well done and thoroughly enjoyable, but due to the limitations of the medium, i.e. runtime limitations, these adaptations had to leave out quite a lot of material from the books. Fans have thus long since wished for a more faithful adaptation of these beloved stories, a more long-form adaptation. We thought our prayers had been answered when it was announced last year that this show was in development, with J.K. Rowling herself on board as executive producer. And we have been waiting eagerly for news as the show begins to take shape. And we have gotten some news. It was first announced that Professor Dumbledore had been cast, with John Lithgow taking up the post of Hogwarts headmaster. Now, while there was some grumbling that Lithgow isn't British, his casting was generally well received. He's a really great actor. There were a few other casting announcements thereafter, including Nick Frost as Hagrid, Janet McTeer as Professor McGonagall, Paul Whitehouse as Filch, all of which seemed like fine casting choices. However, the bizarre casting of Papa Asidu as Severus Snape caused, and continues to cause, quite a bit of controversy. You see, Snape is described as being a pale, sallow-skinned man with a hooked nose and greasy curtains of hair multiple times in the books, and occasionally described as being marble white. Further, he was previously portrayed by the fantastic Alan Rickman in the film series. And well, Papa Asidu doesn't quite fit the description that everyone who loves Harry Potter is familiar with. Can you spot the difference? Anyway, last week they announced the casting choices for our main characters, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and once again, I think they did a fine job. Meet the Harry Potter actors cast to play Harry, Hermione, and Ron. The actors who were cast for the lead roles in the upcoming Harry Potter series were revealed Tuesday. They are Dominic McLaughlin, Arabella Stanton, and Alastair Stout. The 3 actors will be the new faces of the young wizards who first cast a spell over readers around the world nearly 30 years ago with the release of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in 1997. So this is the 3 characters. And again, I'm fine with these. They look like the characters. Not exactly what I thought they would look like, but I can easily see them stepping into the roles. Apparently, over 30,000 children auditioned in an open casting call for the newly cast roles. Showrunner said, "The talent of these 3 unique actors is wonderful to behold, and we cannot wait for the world to witness their magic together on screen." Now again, HBO has said the series will be a faithful adaptation of the books that will span a decade. And it just says Harry Potter could be on HBO Max as early as 2026, according to BBC News. So that's it. Also, another casting thing, there's apparently been a leak of the Molly Weasley casting. This one says fans of Harry Potter are voicing their approval of the leaked casting of Molly Weasley for the highly anticipated HBO TV series. A recent rumor could have revealed the new Molly Weasley. Portrayed by Julie Walters in the Harry Potter movie series, the mother of Ron and his 6 siblings plays a pivotal role as the matriarch of the Weasley family and a sort of surrogate mother for Harry. The rumored actor has big shoes to fill after Walters' portrayal. One user on Reddit claims they are a part of a Discord group full of television industry insiders and believe that Jessica Hines may take on the role of Molly Weasley alongside Peter Capaldi, who could star as Ollivander. So that's Jessica Hines, who is rumored to be. Now this is unconfirmed, obviously, so take this with a grain of salt. She is best known for her roles in Shaun of the Dead, Nativity 2, and more recently Death of a Unicorn. So far, they've done a really fine job with the casting, mostly. Some people have complained about Hermione's casting, since the actress appears darker complected than her description in the books, and her prior on-screen portrayal. I don't see a problem, though. I mean, the girl looks like she might be Mediterranean, but that shouldn't break the lore. Does it matter, though? I'm worried that no matter how good the remainder of the casting is, they've already lost a large percentage of viewers due to the Snape casting. There are so many reasons that casting a black man to play Snape is a sticking point for people, including introducing racial dynamics into his backstory that didn't exist before. And it's just such a blatant, broken promise. They keep saying they're doing a faithful adaptation, but then they race swap one of the main characters. And again, Snape being black fundamentally changes so much about the story, and not just his story either. I did a video on this topic last month where I lay out all the reasons Snape, of all people, should not be race swapped. Check it out if you want. I really want to be excited about this show, and most of the casting sounds exciting. I just wish they had picked somebody else for Snape. I mean, there's probably a dozen other characters that Papa Aceto could have played in this show. But casting him as Snape just seems to be a purposeful, almost malicious deviation from the source material and breaking of the lore. Now, what do you think? Are you happy with the casting of Harry, Ron, and Hermione? Are you planning on watching this show regardless of the casting? So that brings us to our last story, and I saved the best for last. The Last of Us, the popular video game series turned hit TV show on HBO starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Season 1 premiered back in 2023 and was quite popular. While it departed in some rather fundamental ways from the video game, it was a pretty decent adaptation. And then, of course, people who never played the video game probably liked it even more, with nothing to compare it to. And I must say, Pedro Pascal remains a popular actor. Quite a few people probably tuned in because he was in the show. He plays Joel, the tough, hardened survivor in a zombie-like post-apocalypse that is hired to ferry a teenage girl across a dangerous landscape to another group of survivors. The girl, Ellie, is played by Bella Ramsey, who is apparently somewhat known for her role in Game of Thrones. Anyway, I didn't know much about this actress when I started watching the show, but I did know, as a fan of the video game, that she neither looked nor acted very much like Ellie from the game. It did work, though. While Ramsey isn't the greatest actress to ever grace the small screen, with Pedro Pascal to play off of, it turned out to be fine. In fact, the show received almost universal acclaim, holding a critic score of 96 and an audience score of 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. And the season finale of Season 1 brought in 8.2 million viewers. Renewed for a second season almost as soon as the first dropped, many unsuspecting fans looked forward to the next installment. Many of the unsuspecting fans had never played the video game, and were otherwise unenlightened about the drama and controversy that The Last of Us Part 2 generated. You see, while Season 1 was an adaptation of the original Last of Us video game, Season 2 was promised to be an adaptation of the second game in the series, The Last of Us Part 2. Unfortunately, that game is one of the most divisive releases in history. The tone was a complete departure from the original, the story is dark, bleak, and nihilistic, and due to the shocking and much reviled surprise of, spoiler alert, killing off Joel very near the beginning, the father-daughter dynamic that made the first game and season so beloved and memorable was completely absent. The second game was almost entirely a vengeance story arc from two different angles. They not only retconned Joel's past, but also changed his character to fit the new story. And they filled the game with social and LGBT messaging that a lot of people found heavy-handed and, frankly, off-putting. The Last of Us 2 thus received much harsher criticism than the original, and only made roughly 50% of the sales of the first one. And it was predicted, including by myself in a prior video, that if they faithfully adapted The Last of Us Part 2 in Season 2 of the show, it would not bode well for viewership and audience reviews. Well, they did it. They killed Joel off in the first couple of episodes, just like in the game. They were thus left with a Pedro Pascal show almost completely devoid of Pedro Pascal, and it had to be carried by Bella Ramsey, who unfortunately few people tuned in to see every week. Let's see how well our predictions turned out, shall we? The Last of Us Season 2 finale ratings reveal a major drop as HBO spins a 55% audience decline. So The Last of Us Season 2 has officially wrapped, and while HBO is touting the series' long-term streaming growth, the initial ratings for the finale paint a much different picture. According to data shared by HBO and reported by Deadline, the Season 2 finale drew 3.7 million cross-platform viewers in the US on its first night. But while that number may seem strong in isolation, it represents a 30% drop from the Season 2 premiere, which brought in 5.3 million viewers. More significantly, it marks a 55% drop from the Season 1 finale, which drew 8.2 million viewers across platforms. Over half the audience left between Season 1 and Season 2 finales. So that's the real story. More than half of the show's finale audience disappeared between seasons, despite its critical praise and mainstream coverage. Much of the decline aligns with controversial creative decisions that unfolded in both the original game and the TV adaptation. Season 2 follows the divisive narrative arc of The Last of Us Part 2, including the early removal of beloved character Joel and the story centered on Abby, a character who continues to split opinion among longtime fans. Audience reception has mirrored this tension. While critic scores remain high, Season 2 holds a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes somehow, the audience score has fallen to just 39%, indicating a sharp divide between industry praise and viewer satisfaction. Indeed, just like in the video game, mainstream critics loved The Last of Us Part 2, showered it with universal praise, while the gaming community overwhelmingly despised it. Neil Druckmann, the co-creator of the HBO series and director of the original game, stated in an interview that he prefers to ignore media and audience criticism and instead stick to your guns and pursue his creative vision. That philosophy, while artistically consistent, may not be bridging the gap between what fans want and what the show delivers. But for now, the numbers are clear. The Last of Us has lost more than half its audience since Season 1, and that's a drop even HBO's spin can't obscure. So again, it basically mirrors the drop of the video game. Basically 50%. They sold 20 million units of the original Last of Us game and barely broke 10 million for the second one. Still a lot of games, but half your audience is still half your audience. So just like the game, Season 2 of the show lost more than 50% of its audience over the first season. And a large part of that lost audience were normies, people who didn't play the games and don't follow industry news. This thus vindicates the gamers who abandoned ship when The Last of Us Part 2 came out. Critics and media called all those gamers bigots and haters and numerous other names, and accused a few bad apples of review bombing the game, which thus caused the lower sales. Just like they're now accusing review bombing for the low score for this season. But now we've seen the exact pattern emerge with an entirely new audience. It turns out that killing off the main character, rewriting his story and making his character act completely different than he did before, and changing the entire story that people fell in love with, is just an unpopular move. People like The Last of Us because of the relationship between Joel and Ellie. When you take that away, people tune out. Who could have guessed? Anyway, Season 3 is still somehow on the horizon, and it's rumored that it will be told through the perspective of Abby, the girl who murdered Joel. How do you think that's going to go over with the remaining audience? I can't wait to find out. What did you think of The Last of Us Season 2? Did you stick around to the end, or did you bail like 50% of the audience did? Well, that brings us to the end of this installment of the weekly wrap-up here in the Culture Ward. What did you think of the news stories? Are there any other stories that you want us to delve into next time? Let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Bye for now. I hope to see you next time in the Culture Ward.